Node effects. 1. Shock vulnerability custom node. When the defender is inflicted with bleed, incinerate, rupture, or degeneration, they also receive an additional shock debuff. This is the key to controlling the fight. Shock must be maintained to counter the next node. 2. Unblockable specials. The defender becomes unblockable after using any special attack, unless they are already affected by a shock debuff at the time the special is triggered. This makes applying shock a priority to maintain block safety. 3. Masochism global node. Every 7 seconds, the next debuff you try to apply is immediately purified, and the defender gains 5% of max health. This can cause issues with ability accuracy and control. 4. Dexterity disabled during specials. While the defender is performing a special attack, the dexterity mastery is disabled, meaning you can evade by dashing back. This requires manual spacing or blocking, making animation knowledge essential. Fight strategy summary. Keep shock on the defender as consistently as possible to prevent them from going unblockable after their specials. Time your debuffs carefully to avoid triggering conflictor unnecessarily. Consider spacing out debuffs to avoid accidental purifies. Since dexterity won't work during specials, practice baiting and blocking SP1 safely, or push to SP2 if it's easier for you to manage. Best champions for this path. 1. Shuri. Why she works. Shuri passively builds shock charges through parry and releases them with her combo. Her shocks are consistent and long-lasting, keeping the opponent under control and preventing unblockable triggers. Great synergy with the shock-based node mechanics. 2. Hulkbuster. Why works. Inflicts shock on heavy plus specials, and his tankiness allows him to absorb chip damage or block specials. Armor, break, and power drain help control power gains. His shock application is frequent enough to manage the unblockable mechanic effectively. 3. Ironheart. Why she works. Solid access to incinerate, rupture, and armor up through her kits. Her rotation allows her to consistently reapply shock while managing power levels via incinerate. 4. Lady Deathstrike. Why she works. Applies rupture on nearly every hit with the right rotation. Benefits from her aggressive, rapid playstyle that keeps shock uptime high. Can play around masochism by applying multiple debuff and despair mastery. 5. Warlock. Why works. Applies passive degeneration via infection, which triggers the bonus shock from a node. He also controls healing and power gain. Excellent at managing power and sustainable due to his utility and heal block. Gordian with Sasquatch synergy can be very useful for this path. You can constantly maintain shock by using parry, and Sasquatch also has rupture, which you can use in case of need. So he won't be a dead weight. Also, Gordian can perfect block specials. Extra tips. Start the fight slow to get a feel for the masochism timer and how your champion interacts with it. Pushto SP1 if you're confident in blocking or manually dodging it. Avoid trying to dexterity. Always maintain at least one shock debuff before baiting or pushing a special.
asked me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so. Everybody asked me how I know. I smiled at them and said she told me so.